Pratik, I might get you to comment on that too, but also what have we learned from the crypto winter, the string of crypto bankruptcies 2022, effectively setting off the crypto winter?
Yep. First, I'll address the Ponzi scheme question. So, as I mentioned many times before, there's 20,000 coins. I can launch a coin in the next 5 seconds. It's pretty easy to do that.
Lie.
If you're going to invest in those coins, yes, then yeah, they're Ponzi schemes, right? But you have to look at it as the whole of the asset class. Like, there are 20,000 coins, but there are about, we think 2025 that can fundamentally change the way we do anything and everything in this world today. The most promising sort of place they can disrupt is finance. I was in TradFi for more than a decade, and it's crazy that we still have T+2 settlement, T+3 Swift, and crazy fees, and like 40 different ledgers that have to be updated to just move a basic message across. That's ripe for disruption, and that is what crypto can solve. So yes, if you're going to invest in some of those other 19,950 coins, yeah, maybe they're Ponzi, but there is a real part of this asset class that is fundamentally going to change the way we live. So that's my answer to that. The second is, with Bitcoin, the United States sitting president is talking about it. So is it a Ponzi scheme? Maybe you want to double check your biases and consider it and get educated, because it is really, really beautiful the way it's being created and the way it runs today. And the following question, sorry, yours was?
Well, what you learned from the crypto winter and those string of bankruptcies.
Yep. So the crypto winter occurred primarily because of a lack of regulation. Most of these exchanges, most of these borrowing lending protocols, they were offshore entities. Bermuda and Bahamas and other sort of places, they were operating that with very, very relaxed sort of rules and regulations. That was bound to happen in our opinion. Like, the amount of credit that was sloshing into the market and rehypothecation was pretty crazy, and anybody in the industry was just like, this is going to get out of control. Luckily, with a Trump presidency, we will have potentially favorable regulations. He said we're going to have one in the first 100 days after he joins. And with favorable regulations, we are already seeing a lot of the crypto companies re-onshore back to the US. So a lot of them were driven out to Dubai, Bahamas, Bermuda, other places. They will re-domicile in the US under favorable regulations and a clear regulatory framework. And we will never, hopefully will not see any of those blow-ups ever again, because we will have something sensible to work with.
Obviously, this is something that Trump is proposing. In fact, there's a bill, Senator Loomis, the Bitcoin Act, which is part of essentially to incentivise other G20 countries to start purchasing Bitcoin as well. What would the effect of that be? What's the size of the potential reserve we're looking at?
Yep. So first, it won't incentivize other G20 countries per se, but it will almost force them to think about it and consider what they want to do about Bitcoin. Like, they're thinking about it potentially right now, but if the US indicates anything in that direction, they would have to really seriously think about it. They cannot stay sidelined. So talking about the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve, it was a bill proposed by Senator Loomis in the US. The goal of the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve is to purchase 1 million Bitcoin over 5 years. So about 200,000 Bitcoin per year. Today, US is one of the largest holders of Bitcoin already. They confiscated it from previous hacks, but they hold about 210. So their goal is to use that as a base and then continue purchasing more Bitcoin over the next 5 years. Now, some people think that's ridiculous, that's ludicrous. How are they going to buy 1 million Bitcoin, all of that, the price will go to the moon, all of that stuff. Yeah, sure, but even with that, they own like a fraction of the total Bitcoin out there. So when you think about it, does the government holding 5% of the global gold reserves worry you? Does the government holding 5% of your national land worry you? Really? So, there's definitely a use case for them holding a strategic Bitcoin reserve as well, given that the network has proven itself as a really tangible and strong currency out there, an alternate currency. So, that would be very, very beneficial. The interesting thing in that is, post a Trump win, in less than 24 hours, Senator Loomis actually posted that we are going to get the strategic reserve on board, and then Eric Trump and some of the other people in the Trump admin, retweeted it, thumbs up. It was fascinating to see that they were already on it 24 hours after a Trump win. So it's not something that they dropped in a month after. It's like 24 hours, just like, let's get this going. So it's fascinating to see. This morning there was a podcast where Senator Lummis was on, and they are targeting Q1, Q2 to get that bill passed. Now, whether or not it passes, it has to go through Congress, but that's the target at the moment, and that would really force G20 countries, everybody else, to actually seriously look at that. Well, like if the US is going to head in that direction, what do we want to do?
Well, let's look at the potential that does to the price movement there we're seeing in Bitcoin. Pratik, begs the question of how much you should hold, but more broadly, what does a balanced investment portfolio look like? How much crypto exposure should you have?
Yeah, it's to each investor on how much risk they want to take. I would be very comfortable with Bitcoin at a substantial portion. However, if you want to be in frontier tech, if you want to actually bet on the next 4 to 6 years of this crypto technology that's been around to actually fundamentally change some of the incumbent, disrupt the financial markets and stuff at the moment, then Bitcoin's sort of like a large cap asset. You got to look at things that can outperform Bitcoin, and we think there's incredible opportunity in some of the alt space that can fundamentally disrupt the incumbent financial markets and stuff. So it really depends on what your risk tolerance is. But the upside for the alts market is, Bitcoin's got a clear story, narrative, that's clear, that's out of the way. But the rest of the ecosystem should not be left behind. That's also a huge chunk of the market. And we think there's incredible opportunity there over the next 4 years under a favorable regulatory framework, starting from stable coins, but also in DeFi and stuff, disrupting existing trade routes and trade financing and all types of things that happen through, current SWIFT systems and all of that. So I think there's incredible opportunity.
Particularly when you're looking at those altcoins and the utility, I guess, what are you looking for though, and which is likely to see perhaps those tokens do very well?
Yep. So number one thing you want to look at each of these altcoins is, well, there's network effects. So there's the concept of gas. When you want to use the network, you got to pay a fee. Typically, when you use a Visa, MasterCard, you pay 1% transaction fee, 0.5% transaction fee, you pay it in Aussie dollars. In crypto, you pay it in the native currency of that blockchain. If you're using Ethereum, you got to use ETH as gas. If you're using Solana, you got to use Solana as gas. So as the network starts to grow and starts to have more use cases and starts to disrupt incumbent Web through businesses, more people come onto the blockchain. When they come onto the blockchain, they got to use its currency. Its currency is its native currency in which it was created with, Ethereum, Solana, whatever have you. So that's how we look at finding some of these tokens. We look at on-chain metrics very, very closely. We don't just look at marketing decks or white papers and future roadmaps. We look at the on-chain metrics. Blockchains don't lie. They update practically every 10 seconds. We've got a live model. We track that every day, every second. And we are very confident that we can pick winners before anybody else in the market because we watch it very closely. About 2 nuanced US regulations that are going to completely change the dynamics of this. The first one is FASB. It's effectively accounting rules. It's going to go live on the 15th of December of this year, so in 2 or 3 weeks. Effectively, in the past, if you held Bitcoin as a corporate on your balance sheet, you could only mark to market the losses, but never the gains unless you sold it. That's going to change on the 15th of December. So all corporates can now actually buy Bitcoin, put it on, and mark to market on their balance sheet, which is going to open up the entire corporate game out there. The second point is banks today are not allowed to custody, solicit, sell Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies. SAB 121, likely under Trump, also gets passed. And when that gets passed, you're going to see, or maybe not CBA Westpac, but banks in the US openly market, custody, solicit the purchase of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. So that's really, really big, tailwinds coming to the sector as well.
In fact, Pratik, why invest in a fund? Why, when particularly you go to exchange, it's easy today to do so, to buy whatever you want, really, or you can buy an ETF perhaps.
So today investors have 2 to 3 options. One, you can invest in the ETF. Today only Bitcoin, Ethereum ETFs exist. We think the opportunity set outside of these is enormous under a Trump win, and the returns are going to be far outperforming, Bitcoin and Ethereum. So ETFs can't offer you that. So come to a fund like us, and we can offer you that. The second one, you can log on to a cryptocurrency exchange, and you can purchase your coins. But this market is extremely volatile. It moves very quickly, and you really need to know what you're doing to really pick the right ones. Like, if you're just going to go and punt on a couple of coins, sure. But if you really want a concentrated exposure to the best names in this entire asset class, you're better off coming to an active manager like us. We live, breathe, watch crypto. I've practically just slept 5 hours a day for the last 2 months. We know everything, a lot about this, and we also come with a proper sort of custodian framework and all of that. So your assets are going to be safe. You're not going to lose your password, get hacked, or get rugged, or any of those things. We use institutional grade custodians, Coinbase, Fireblocks. They're insured, very safe, operating for 6+ years. So you get all of those benefits with us, including hopefully the biggest winners in the next 4 to 5 years in a nice concentrated fashion.
Except the retail investor can't do that.
That's right. It may change with changing regulations, but yeah, for now it's wholesale only.
Well, some Carolina saying there's a spot Bitcoin ETF options now live on the NASDAQ. What's the potential and the opportunity that brings?
With spot Bitcoin ETF and options on that, it's just further institutionalizing this asset class. More and more participants can get in now. I mean, there's a lot of people that like to play on the vol of Bitcoin without actually owning Bitcoin. They just like to play the volatility. There's a lot of hedge funds out there that only do purely options. There's a lot of other sort of family offices, large institutions, sovereign funds that want the upside, sort of the optionality on Bitcoin. There's some of them that want an yield on Bitcoin by selling covered calls. Today, it was a bit difficult because there was only 1 or 2 large options venues that were offering those products, and they were listed and they were in obscure jurisdictions under obscure regulatory frameworks. Packaging this up and putting it on NASDAQ just further cements this and makes it more Lindy. The Lindy effect is the longer something's around, the longer it's going to stay, and this is just getting stronger and stronger. So it's not going away. It's not going away. You'll be another 25 years and you've still got to be talking about Bitcoin. Yeah.
Pratik, just quickly further to what Richard had to say, what do you see as the risk potentially if Trump doesn't get through some of these policies, be it the strategic reserve or some of his appointees? What's the potential risk there?
So that's always possible. It's politics.
Yep.
But I'm very confident that Trump has a White House. He has the Senate, and he has a lower house as well. So he's got the House, he's got the Senate, he's got the White House. So it should be pretty positive. Now that being said, if he can't get certain appointments, saying the strategic reserve doesn't get passed for whatever reason, I think we've already crossed the chasm. I mean, even if it doesn't happen right now, we may see some volatility to the downside, but in 3 years, are we going to reverse back saying it's it's going to go to zero? Well, no, the likely answer is no. It's probably just going to be a little bit volatile, but the conversation's got to be had again. Now remember, around Trump directly hasn't mentioned if he owns Bitcoin, but JD Vance, his vice president, owns about 500,000. Tulsi Gabbard owns, which is his national security advisor. Robert F. Kennedy, his health minister, owns a significant amount of Bitcoin. Vivek Ramaswamy, his other pick under Doge, owns Bitcoin, and Elon Musk owns Bitcoin. There's a lot of people that own it around him.
Well, it does bring up that question of self-interest and conflict of interest, doesn't it?
I think a lot of, if you look at the Nancy Pelosi meme coin stock trader thing, like that's been happening since the beginning of time as well. So but this is a decentralized currency. This is not a single company equity stock where you can call up the CEO or the board of directors saying we're going to pass this favorable regulations if you and fill our bags before that. This is more equitable, so to speak.